Good evening and aloha. Yay, we're here. I'm Catherine Whitney. I'm the Director of Curatorial Affairs here at HOMA. And on behalf of our museum director, Halona Norton Westbrook, and the chairman of our board, Josh Feldman, mahalo. And thank you all for coming tonight to help us celebrate the amazing work and the Herculean efforts of internationally acclaimed artist, Rebecca Louise Law. On the occasion of Rebecca's opening, Awakening, here at HOMA, which runs for an entire year through next September 2023, we're bringing you this conversation between the artist and our director. It was Halona's idea to bring the artist and her family here to Hawaii after her successful curation and presentation of Rebecca's installation, Community, at the Toledo Museum of Art in 2018. The two women on stage tonight have built a really beautiful and lasting friendship, which has blossomed into many positive directions and branches since. Rebecca has come to Hawaii for a second time with an incredible sense of wonder, humility, and respect. She's listened and she's learned from all of you, from our many community members, partners, volunteers, and flower enthusiasts, many of whom help us source, string, and sculpt this incredible sensory installation. For me personally, it's been one of the highlights of my curatorial career to work with Rebecca and this team. Awakening combines the artist's over 1 million flowers collected globally and dried, organic elements combined with 50,000 new specimens collected here in Hawaii with the permission of Oahu neighborhoods and city botanical parks. In addition to receiving flower donations from our community, we're extremely grateful for the time of over 250 local volunteers who helped string these natural garlands under the guidance of Rebecca's spirited and generous husband, who is also the director of her studio, Andy Law. I also wanted to thank our incredible installation team who worked tirelessly for over a period of a month under and with Rebecca under her creative direction to transform HOMA's upper level galleries into this remarkable natural wonderland. There are so many staff members to thank, including our registrar, Kyle, who diplomatically ushered 30 pallets of flowers through the Department of Agriculture, to our amazing learning and engagement team under Aaron Padilla, who helped spearhead sourcing and interpretation, along with his colleague, Christine Boutros. And thanks to our curatorial administrator and editor, Sati Chalk, along with fellow curators, Catherine Love and Tori Laitila, who helped us all coordinate this finely choreographed dance and museum-wide collaboration. Even our HR department, spearheaded by Sharon Stillman, made this exhibition her own and everybody in the museum's own gallery. She organized very fun employee engagement activities as well as volunteer engagements, which helped get the job done and brought us all closer together. Thanks to the many I'm not mentioning as well, by name, who raised and contributed funding, who organized events, who directed the crowds, who photographed, who videographed, who designed and promoted the exhibition, and who put our hearts and souls into this project. I also want to sincerely thank our sponsors, our lead sponsors, the Hawaiian Airlines and Tory Richards, and the many other individual exhibition promoters and sponsors who are all listed at the beginning of the exhibition, including Ion Group, who helped engineer the grid structure that all the flowers hang from, with our Director of Facilities, Jason Morrison. To all of you, mahalo. You may or may not have noticed something unique in HOMA's installation, which has never appeared in Rebecca's installations prior to this exhibition here. Hidden in plain sight are Rebecca's additions of marine plastics that we collected during a beach cleanup in the North Shore in July. I'll let Rebecca and Halona delve the significance of this, the placement and the meaning of this unique addition, but it does really bring new significance and environmental gravitas to her practice. Suffice it to say, all these natural elements, the hands and the hearts, have combined under Rebecca's vision to offer us a place of joy, of solace, of deep reflection of humankind's complex and increasingly threatened relationship with nature. So how did Rebecca come to the preserved flower as her muse? Rebecca is the fine product of a family of artists and gardeners going back 4 generations. While she now lives in Wales with her husband Andy and her 5-year-old son Alexander, she was born in Cambridge, UK, to a mum and a father who was the head gardener of a National Trust property. Her dad would eventually serve as the main gardener and the consultant for the whole east of England and Northern Ireland, a man whom Rebecca lovingly describes as quite clever with gardens, a trait she obviously inherited. I heard her speaking about his talents and aesthetic tendencies, almost as if she was trying to channel his artful gift, his approaches and his pathways, while installing her incredible, complex, and nuanced installation upstairs. Rebecca started her fine arts career as a painter and a printmaker, but got quite frustrated that she was only working in 2 dimensions. Her practice after art school came to include weaving, glass making, and pottery, but botanical elements have become her primary medium, and that was since 2003. With them, she paints in the air, she sculpts in space, and she evokes within our imagination themes of sustainability, time, and man's evolving relationship with nature. Her work has been exhibited in the UK at the Royal Academy of Art, the Victoria and Albert Museum, as well as in museums and spaces in Poland, New Zealand, Denmark, France, Italy, Greece, and in the US. She's a gifted artist and a wonderful human being, and I think you'll glean that tonight in her conversation with Halona. Before closing, I do want to offer 2 final notes of general housekeeping. The first is that you may have picked up a note card and a pencil when you came in, and those are for your questions. We're going to have a Q&A after the discussion tonight, so please write down your questions and put them in the air, and we'll come along and collect them during the lecture, and we'll still have some isolated questions that Halona will read from at the end. The second is that in order to accommodate the lines that might be forming outside the exhibition right now, and so that we can close at 9 p.m., we ask that you all leave through the exit on Kinau Street, but please come back anytime this weekend or anytime the rest of this year to visit this exhibition again and again. I think each time you go through it, you'll see something new. So with this, let's play a brief video produced by UK filmmaker Mark Jones, which really encapsulates Rebecca's journey through her Hawaii-based awakening. And then let's kick off this much-awaited conversation between Rebecca and Halona. Mahalo.
Aloha, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you for braving the rain and coming to be with us this evening. And thank you to Rebecca for being here. We're so honored to have you, and we're so honored to have your project with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, we thought we would start this evening by, Catherine's done a beautiful job introducing you, but talking a little bit about your journey as an artist and your practice.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know my story, I studied fine art at Newcastle University, and I was really fascinated in colour and the abstract expressionists, the colour-filled painters, and nature, that combined. And I started off my university degree by creating these huge canvases, and it was just never enough. And like Catherine said, I just felt really frustrated because what I was trying to show the viewer about nature, I never actually was feeling by looking at a 2D piece myself of my own work. And I was privileged enough to have a 4-year art degree. And in my 3rd year, I put down my paintbrushes and I started desperately trying to find how I could possibly paint in the air. And I experimented with all kinds of things, actually thinking back, as I did use plastic at one point just to see what it would do, and more molding it and forming it. And and it just nothing.
Didn't you like try food at one point too, and
Yes.
different things to try and like
Yeah.
create this experience that people had to be
Yeah.
surrounded by? Or tell us about that.
Yeah, so my final piece in my third year of university was this crazy installation. So I had found installation art, which had paintings on the wall and every kind of material that you could have possibly ever had, including sweets hanging from the ceiling that my tutors loved because they just walked in and just started eating them all. Like, and they're like, "This is great, Rebecca. You can carry on doing this." But alongside that final piece that I did that year were flowers, and they were just kind of there with everything else. And I went home that summer, and as Catherine said, my father's a gardener, and next door to the garden that I grew up with was a nursery garden with all the plants that they use for the National Trust property next door to our garden. And in the nursery garden, it was August, there were dahlias, and it was a huge plot of land, probably as big as this theatre, and it had every colour in a palette, just sitting there, apart from blue. And I just looked at it and I was like, that's it. That's my palette. And I said to my dad, I was like, is there any chance I can take these dahlias back to university with me? And actually with the dahlia flower, they really love being cut. So he was like, yeah, take as many as you like, whatever crazy thing you're doing next. So I loaded up the car, and I also, at the same point, was going back into my fourth year of university, my final year, and I was in charge for that whole year of the installation committee. So that was my responsibility to look after this space, which was designed especially for installation artists. And of course, I booked it out for myself for the first month. And I just kind of started with these dahlias, and I created this installation, which was a square hanging from the ceiling just above the viewer's head. And in a sense, I just flipped the canvas above your head, But what had happened was these dahlias were drying in situ, and the viewer came in and experienced that. And they were there with nature. And suddenly, as soon as the viewer came into the space and was in these flowers, I knew that that was exactly what I was trying to do. So that was 2003. And ever since then, I haven't stopped.
So when you did, that sort of breakthrough piece, what was it that you felt about the flower sort of as a medium that appealed to you, and what has that sort of developed into over the course of your practice?
So the flower as a medium, immediately I thought, why have I not listened to anything my dad has said? And I felt very naive. I felt like I knew nothing about plants. I just suddenly was panicked, thinking, okay, I'm going to work with this material, but I don't know what anything is called. I've paid no attention. I'm going to have to really study hard because I'm starting from zero again, and I just can't believe it. I've studied art for so long, and now I'm starting right at the beginning. And I knew that I'd have to find out about floristry. I'd have to find out about the history of working with flowers, the cultivation. Where are they grown? How can you get them? How much do they cost? Like, I just took them from my dad's garden, like all these things. And I knew that I would have to spend a long time doing that. And I had to go back to the shop floor and sweep the floors and learn from the start all over again. And it was tough, it was a really hard thing to learn about the flower and the industry that it's in. But it was incredible because I basically just asked as many questions as I possibly could. I worked in lots of different florists to find out like all the different styles and why people did things differently. It was all research. And I kind of kept moving forwards. And eventually, I decided that it was time to go back to full-time doing my own artwork. And I still am researching with the flower. Every single new place I go to has flowers I've never met before. Working with preservation is key for me. Will it dry? Yes, it will. Nearly every single flower will dry. In the right conditions, I could either press it or hang it and it will dry. Oh. So the flower, I'm still learning. It is a medium that I use as a preserved material. It is not a medium I use necessarily as a fresh material. And that's mainly because I see value in it beyond fresh. And that's where sustainability comes in for me, because I see the value in that material for longer than it is alive. Yeah.
So, there we go. So when did you start to have the element of your practice that is about sort of really focusing on the sustainability and the sort of cumulative quality of having many installations come together and build upon each other, and then the importance of preserving? Because I'm not sure if people know that in every installation, every single part of the flower is saved. And even when little petals fall on the floor, we've been instructed to save all of those for the entire year so that they get restrung. And in fact, there's some strands in the installation right now that are just exactly that, from other installations, from flowers, from petals that have shed and then been reincorporated. So this idea of sustainability and reuse, could you talk about that?
Yeah, so I suppose using the dried flower in art, I grew up with my mum and my dad drying flowers in our attic, and then my grandma used to make pressed flower pictures and cards while I grew up. So I always saw value in the dried flower as an art material. And for me, I took down the dahlia installation and I reused it immediately for a new installation. And that carried on from there. So from 2003, I would just reuse what I had. It was my sculptural material, so I never saw it as anything that should go in the bin. So even when it did become dust, I would archive it and put it between glass. I didn't see any reason for it to have to go into the bin. And it really did break my heart when I went in to learn about floristry, because the amount of flowers that were thrown in the bin daily, weekly, monthly, was a huge amount. And when I did start working in my own practice, I would go round to every florist I knew in London with my car on a Monday morning and collect all their waste.
Yeah, so when Rebecca lived in London, she lived on Columbia Road. For those of you who have been to London before, that's where the major flower market is. So right outside her door, there would be all the material that she uses in every color and every kind. And you really were completely immersed in that world of flowers.
Yeah. And I would create, so I didn't have a gallery representing me, and I didn't care. So I just went out on the street and I would create installations in trees or just in the park or on a railing. Although I stopped creating installations on this certain railing because the street cleaner actually came up to me crying, saying, "Please stop." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I've just brought this street cleaner to tears because I'm creating installations." And then I was like, "Okay, yeah, I promise I won't do this street again," But yeah, I felt a strong feeling inside that art should be for everyone has always been in me. And I felt like going out onto the street, if that has to be my gallery, then it will have to be my gallery, because I need to make. And so I would just find spaces and make. And I found some amazing organizations in London that I could experiment with the preserving and drying of flowers in spaces. So there were many organizations that would have temporary exhibitions in disused buildings, and I did that for quite a long while, and going around and just collecting florists' waste. Yeah, so it's on my heart to see value in the material that we have been given here on Earth, and that kind of like is very, very strong within my artwork. But this installation is definitely talking about that as we live as human beings on this earth, and about how much do we need, and looking at kind of the things we have, and seeing the value in it.
Yeah. So I wonder if you could speak to, a part of your practice that has really evolved, which is involving other people in the making and in the experience of activating the artwork, and what that means for you in both those ways.
Yeah, so the community involvement, I think, has come through. I did, as well as doing these crazy, wacky installations. I would call it guerrilla art, actually, is what I was doing. I was also creating art projects through my father's work, going into forests with children from schools, and different groups of people with different needs and abilities, and just showing them how to play with nature. So we were given this space in a forest, and I would just take groups into the space and just see what would happen. And I think from then on, the kind of process of opening people's eyes up to playing with nature and just making art and having a beginning, a middle, and an end, and just this kind of sense of achievement, even if it was ephemeral art, has kind of stayed with me ever since then. And I just saw how powerful art is at bringing people together and putting everyone on an equal ground. And it really is something that I enjoy so much with these projects. And when I met Helena, she said, what do you want to do with us? What if you could do anything in this exhibition? This is in Toledo. What would it be? And I was like, can we really push the boundaries with community? Can we really go for it? And I said, can we do an exhibition called Community, where we literally get as many groups from the community together to create this installation with me? And we did it. It was really hard work, but we did it. And it was the most beautiful piece. And we had locally grown flowers that we literally just plucked the tips of the plants, and the plants got them planted back into the community. And we had local people, local groups all working together. We mixed up people, mixed up the groups, threading the flowers and putting them into the installation. And that was 5 years ago. And ever since then, whenever I can have the opportunity with an institution to include local people and local hands, I do it. Because I feel like the process of making art, or my process of making art, can be shared, and there's no reason for me not to.
So maybe talk a little bit about, the process of being in the space, because this being sort of the second time you and I have done a project together, I had deja vu, last month, walking into the gallery and watching you put up that very first garland, and it doesn't look like it looks right now. It looked completely bare, right? And just the beginning of it. And then I think, for the many people who've been involved in this project on staff and the volunteers, people have gotten a chance to see how you work in the space, how you really do paint in the air with these flowers. And just, as in a traditional painting practice, you do something and then you add to it, and then you completely change it because actually it wasn't right, And I just wondered if you could sort of speak about that process of creating and what you're looking for when you approach that creation in that way.
Yeah, so when I visit a space, it's so, so important for me, because that is my canvas. And I really do approach a space as a painter. And I quite mathematically actually work out how many flowers I need. and then I'll calculate how many flowers I have, and then I'll calculate how many flowers. We probably could do a few more. So as soon as Helena showed me the space here, I was like, I think we need my collection, because this is a really big space, and otherwise I'll have to be here for a year foraging. And we were originally thinking of like just using local flowers, and I just said I don't think we're going to be able to, because it's just so much work that we'll need to fill this space. And we managed to get, like Catherine said, 30 pallets of flowers here, which is about 1 million flowers over. It's my whole collection. The Department of Agriculture were incredible, and they are there upstairs, as you can see. And then we've added, I said, a minimum of 10,000 flowers, and we think way over 50,000 local materials. And
the amount of people here, I'm sure many of you in the audience were amongst those who brought us flowers again and again, and it was an amazing thing to see.
yeah, it has been incredible. So the way I work is in layers, like a painter, and priming my canvas is tonal. So with this piece, with the awakening piece, I wanted it to be like you walk through time, and you in quite a close experience at the beginning of the installation, where it's a bit darker, it's dense, and then you get brought out into the light. So I work tonally, I work with the biggest clusters first, and then I get smaller. And then at the end, I'm working through the colours. But what was quite incredible with this as well is I didn't know what was coming each day from what was being wired. So I also had all these things that I had to work through, as well as probably about 10 other boxes of who knows. So then it was like, lay it out. And then it was getting, in the last week, I was like, oh, please no more dark tones. Please just calm down on the dark tones. Can I have some more bougainvillea, please? And I did start getting a little bit more selective. But yeah, we managed to have these few beautiful, like, sculptural pieces that we could put into. And for me, it is like putting a dot on a painting. And I find it very easy to paint in the air and see things like that. And poor Catherine had a hard time with me, in the sense of I can't put it on paper for her to know exactly what I'm going to do. So she had to be very patient with me and trust me that I was going to be able to just paint over the last 5 weeks with whatever comes out of each box. Because the other thing is these flowers are very, very old. So I don't know what quality they'll be like with every single box. And I don't know exactly what color or tone they will be each time I open the box. So every time it is like getting out a new color or from my palette. So yeah, it is challenging, and you have to be patient with me, but I will get there in the end.
So, having known you for several years now and sort of seen a number of your installations and in different moments of your life and things that have been happening in the world, I'm always struck by you tie your installations very beautifully to things that are happening thematically in your life and the life of others, right? So this installation being awakening, coming out of the pandemic and having that emergence from dark to light, is an example of that. But I just thought maybe you could talk about that in context, other projects that you've done where you were sort of speaking to a particular theme or an interest in that moment of your life.
Yeah, I think interestingly, these huge installations are always a progression of where I was at last. And the last really big installation was The Journey, and the installation before that was The Womb. and the installation before that was community. This is with this body of work. And I feel like in studying and looking at our relationship as human beings with nature, within that just 5 years, we've shifted and internationally shifted. And I think through the hell that everyone has been through, to see art and look at art is a huge privilege. And I just felt like I wanted this artwork to be uplifting, ultimately. And if you can get to see this artwork, which is a massive privilege to be able to come here and see it, I want you to feel, like you leave with hope, because there's just a huge amount of information at the moment going around, which is really heavy and really hard to carry. And we do, as individuals, need to start thinking about how we live. But we also have just been through a really hard time. And so I just felt like this installation, as well as talking about, the immediate, very necessary demand for us to stop consuming as we are so rapidly, yes, that is there. And that is, the plastics are put in the center of the installation. It is in a place where I'm asking the viewer to transition and then walk into the future, into hope. So I feel like it's not about making people feel worse. It's just about what can we really do, like practical small things that we can do to just start making a bit of a shift in the way that we're living, because we can't have this much rubbish anymore. It can't just be washing up on beaches. This has to stop, but it's about time. And I think awakening as well for me, and what I have learned through what we've been through with COVID, it's so important where we put our time. And the community thing for me is key. Know your neighbor, put time into that, and then time into just being with people, but then also looking after yourself. Put time into being with nature. And if you can even just I challenged myself when I did that diary to do half an hour each day on my own with nature, which doesn't sound like a very long time, but believe me, it seemed like this really impossible thing to do. And once I got into the rhythm of it, though, it was amazing for me. And half an hour, not everyone has that, actually. That it is you have to look at your whole day, your whole schedule, and just work out where could you even grab that. And if you can do it,
Yeah, so this makes me think about something I think is good to mention too, because we have an encouragement to not use your cell phone or take pictures in the installation until you're towards the end, which I know is really hard to do. But and one of the reasons we've talked about that being something we want to encourage, understanding it can't be totally enforced, but wanting to encourage it is because once you have your phone in your hand, you're no longer really present in the place that you are. And this artwork is an invitation to be present and to be, just in awe and surrounded by the beauty of nature and the incredibleness of this creation that you have created, but that so many hands here and elsewhere have gone into creating. And it is just something very, very special to just experience.
Yeah, I think the mobile phone thing, it's become a really difficult thing, because I went through a phase of just being completely anti. And then I was around the younger generations, and the way they're communicating is completely different to how I communicate. And actually, I've really softened in the sense of trying to understand and be a little bit more kind of accepting of this new way that we are communicating. But I agree. I think when you walk into an installation, you need to be present. And my compromise is that when you get to the end of it, yay, take a photo, that's fine. Just don't do it in it, because the whole point is to be connecting to nature. And if there is a degree of separation, I also agree that when you do look through the lens of a camera, it does bring you to another place, and that is true. And I do think that going out with a camera into nature it can be incredible. So I do understand, like, the photographers among us, that connection with using your phone. But these artworks are about a physical experience without the digital.
Just, talking to people today who've been in the installation, two things that have sort of come up again and again is, people saying that it evokes so many memories for them to go through the space, because every flower, every plant, has some visceral memory for every person the first time they saw it or experienced it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, how it's like a journey through the world, right? And here in Hawaii, some of these flowers we don't see here, locally. And so it really is a compelling experience in that way.
Yeah, I often say, like, you can't predict what any individual is going to feel in the installations, because everyone has their own memories of kind of their time with nature or with flowers. And I often see people kind of become children again, and adults becoming children again. And I feel like there are so many things when we're a child where we're not separated from nature. We are nature, and I think often it brings up emotional memories for people on an individual basis, where it's just their personal journey. And I feel like, even for myself, part of my inspiration for doing the art that I do is because my dad would, if the wildflowers came out, he would drive us to the field with that wildflower, and we would just lay down in it and take photos of them. But, like, it was these experiences of just laying in, like, a field of wildflowers that led me to want to do this for other people.
So I was hoping, we're going to move on to taking questions from the audience, but one thing I wanted to ask you was about, just the experience of being here in Hawaii and what that has meant for you to be here and to work with this community and learn from this community.
Yeah, so when I was invited, I have to visit the space. So I came a year ago, and Tori and Aaron that work with Helena were incredible at giving me this amazing tour. I actually felt like I'd been here for much longer than I had. And we met some really, really beautiful people. And Marcus from the Bishop Museum, he spoke to me about the lei, and Samantha from the parks spoke to me about the lei and about native Hawaiian culture. And it was very intimidating, actually, coming to a culture where the lei is a part of life, where I had been making these installations which had a similar philosophy. So I was very nervous about doing anything here, actually. For me, filled me with fear that I may in some way offend, or it wouldn't be sensitive enough. And I wanted to be very open to learning. And I had wonderful conversations with Marcus and Samantha, and they actually gave me the confidence to just be able to be very much at ease with coming here, with bringing aloha through my practice, and even just learning that the process of preservation with the lei is actually very, very important here. And that just was so touching to me, because I'd been for years in Europe trying to explain how there is value in the flower beyond fresh, and it was already here within this culture. So that for me was incredible. And I have said that it feels like the installation has come home, and it's just sitting where it should be, and it now has the lei in the artwork. I was very careful they were given as gifts for the installation, and I asked if it was okay to just unravel them to be able to hang them up as individual pieces. And I didn't connect them together, and they are hung as their individual gifts to the installation. And they will come with me now internationally wherever this artwork goes next. And to be honest, it just reinforces this kind of the necessity for loving through flowers, and the community, and just looking after this earth. So yeah, it's been incredible being here. The volunteers, and some of you are here tonight, amazing, absolutely amazing. And when we teach how to wire flowers, we usually have to do a lot of teaching. We didn't have to do hardly any here. I mean, my husband was looking after everyone, and I'm sure he just chatted about oversharing about me, really. But he was. We had one strand that wasn't wired properly. One strand. We've never ever had that before, and that's with 50,000 flowers. I mean, everyone sat down and went, "Yeah, we know what we're doing." And it was amazing, absolutely incredible. I mean, if I could take everyone here with me around the world, that would be just incredible. But yeah, and it's just part of life, and that is what I just think is so beautiful. One person asked me actually, what's the difference between the kind of UK love of flowers and the Hawaiian love of flowers. And I had to really think about it, because I do really feel like, being a British girl, we really, really love flowers in Britain. And the difference is the act of giving a lei is so intimate. It is so intimate. And I don't know how you guys have coped with COVID, because when you give and then you receive, what happens between those two people is so strong, and actually it breaks down those barriers, and it's so loving. It's so loving, because you have to accept someone coming into your space and you going into theirs, and I have been blown away thinking about that, and just how intimate you are with loving through flowers, and I think the rest of the world needs to learn from that, actually.
That's great. Do we have any questions? So here's a question about, in the course of your practice, have there been certain flowers or elements that you felt are missing and that you've actively sought out because you needed that sort of nuance in the installation?
Elements that I thought are missing. Yeah, I mean, I think...
Like specific flowers, I think they're asking.
I think I've learned to compromise a lot, actually. And working with a natural material, that's why I can't do a drawing for Catherine about what the installation will look like. I literally have to work with what I'm given. So sometimes I'll look at my palette and I will be a bit disappointed that I haven't maybe got, actually nearly every time, I haven't got enough blue. That is it. I never have enough blue.
That's good.
And I love blue. It is my favorite color. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's that. Yeah.
Here's a great question. Can you talk about how you approach using natural and artificial light in a space when you're doing an installation? Mahalo. Somebody said.
So it's really, really difficult with light. This installation is probably one of the first in a very long time that we've allowed natural light in. But what is really beautiful about this artwork is the side where I've got the lighter flowers, the sun comes through into there in the mornings, and it really does glow. So if you can try and get there in the morning, do it, because there's something incredible about letting the natural light into that. Usually I would not allow natural light in, because it's the UV or any kind of natural light would usually damage the flowers. But this is has got UV protection, and I kind of felt like with this installation, it's really nice to see the actual architecture of the room. So taking away the windows would have just completely taken away the architecture of the room, because it is a very architectural piece in a sense, if you stand back from it. So
Someone wants to know what your least favorite flower is and why.
oh
Or do you love all your children equally?
yeah, I don't hate any flowers, but there's a flower in my garden at home which is called burdock, and it is absolutely stunning when it comes out, but it's a nightmare to get rid of. I mean, like it's like a weed, so it comes up in all kinds of places, and it's really, really tough. And it also has like these sticky balls that stick to you. So at the moment, it's a little bit like my nemesis in the garden right now.
Okay, then somebody has 3 questions here. So, okay, are you taking all the strings for the flora with you when you leave? I think you mean the whole installation. Are you taking all of that with you? Is there a list of the different plants? And what are the big brown seed pods?
Okay. Yes, I will be taking everything with me. Yes, there is a list of all the different plants on a QR code at the beginning of the installation. And the big brown pods, I think if it's the pods, they are the skunk tree. Or if it's the ones that are having a little happy dance in there, they are the quipo pods. Yeah.
And then also the fluffy butterfly-like seed pods. Those are from Foster, right?
That's quipo, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're amazing.
Yeah.
They are amazing. I love them.
So as was, referenced in the video, Rebecca has these amazing notebooks that we want to display, but they are not here yet because they are going through an approval process, because they have natural materials in them and they have to make the journey from Wales to here. So someone wants you just to speak to the notebooks and the process of creating them, since we can't see them yet.
Yeah, so I had an exhibition in the UK called Seasons, and for this exhibition, it was just basically about looking at the British seasons and the flowers that are in the British season. And so I collected flowers over a year, and we had this exhibition commissioned. So I just suddenly had this feeling that I don't fully know the seasons and the British seasons, so I'm going to start recording them daily. And that was in November 2019. And then COVID obviously happened in 2020. So this year-long recording of the seasons overlapped with a really, really tough time. And these recordings and these journals then became like quite emotional diaries at some times, and where I was trying to just figure things out. And they were for this exhibition, and I kept loyal to it. I kept on doing it. I even did like an Instagram daily diary video, and it was something that I did throughout the whole of that transition into the hell of what COVID was, or still is. And I finished it in at the end of 2020. I went a little bit longer than a year, and I felt like I needed to lay it to rest for this exhibition, and also that it just didn't become something that I did forever. I probably will go back to doing it for another random year, but I felt like I needed to stop when I did, because it covered so much, and I'm sure you all, know and remember fully well that whole year, and it was really tough. But what kept me going through it was just every day trying to find something new in nature. And it was just this amazing record of just finding things, and nature basically holding me through that time. And Vera, who works in the library here, found out about them and really wanted to exhibit them alongside this exhibition. And they will get here. We just need to get the right documentation, because I did collect a natural material every day. We will be having to take some of the specimens out because they're not allowed to be here. And we've just got to figure that out with customs and agriculture. They're a little bit complicated.
So maybe just a couple more questions. One person asking, why do you use copper wire?
So my first installation I actually made with fishing line, and it just wasn't right. It didn't work. It was really difficult to work with. And then I went to a builder's merchants and found this huge roll of copper wire, which was enameled for electrical use. And from then on, I just used that. I didn't know it was enameled, so I thought it would go green, and it never did. So I was like, wow, this stuff is amazing. And then I kind of have found out all the properties of it. What I have found out is that sadly, if you bend and bend it and bend it, it will eventually snap. So it isn't forever. And poor Spenson, who's on one of the art technicians here, had to put a new line of copper on every single length in there to make sure it was strong. Yeah, so he's very good at that job.
Amazing work. Yeah. I think we're out of time, but I wanted everyone to know that we are actually going to bring Rebecca back in December, so you can look forward to more conversations with her when she's here in just a few months. And the exhibition will be up for an entire year, so we hope that you come again and bring your friends and come and view it at different times of day. And thank all of you so much for being here, and thank you so much to Rebecca for sharing your work with us.
Pleasure.